This video was meant to be completely different. It was meant to be about the amazing story of an entrepreneur that went from Shark Tank to selling his company to Uber. And I mean, in a way, it still is. But it's also a video about the line between what's legal and what's ethical. It's about the line between what's fair and what's deceptive. Now, I want to start by saying that I'm not claiming that Uber has done anything deceptive, illegal, or unethical. That's for regulators and courts to decide. But what I want to do is break down the model behind these peer-to-peer car sharing businesses and allow you to come to your own conclusion. Depending where you are in the world, by now you've probably heard of companies like Turo, Getaround, HireCar, but unless you're in Australia, you probably haven't heard of Uber Carshare. I mean, you know Uber, but Uber Carshare is a new product that they're planning to bring to North America in mid-2023, and if it's successful, the rest of the world. The reason we have it here in Australia is because Uber recently acquired an Australian business called Car Next Door for an undisclosed amount that's reported to be about $50 million. The business model is in the name. Car Next Door. It's a platform that allows you to essentially rent out your neighbor's car or van, saving you the hassle and cost of dealing with a rental company and allowing them to monetize their car that would otherwise be sitting unused in their driveway. On the surface, it's a brilliant business that was clearly inspired by peer-to-peer accommodation platforms like Airbnb. But before it became Uber Carshare, changing the company forever and turning hundreds of 5-star reviews into a flood of 1-stars, Car Next Door was an Australian success story and had been serving customers for over 10 years. It was founded back in 2012 when Will Davies and Dave Trumbull spotted a gap in the Aussie market after searching for business ideas that would make a positive impact on the environment. Companies like Relay Rides in the US, which would eventually be rebranded as Turo, had already established a peer-to-peer network of cars and borrowers, but there was nothing like that in Australia. What the founders loved about this peer-to-peer model was the fact that they didn't have to source the vehicles, meaning no leasing, no maintenance, and no parking costs. But that also posed a significant challenge. The problem was that it relied on mass brand awareness, because unless they could attract both renters and owners, they had no product. As Will Davies said, it was a network business. But if they could get it right, they'd be able to scrape an easy 25 to 40% commission off of every single ride and scale it without ever owning a vehicle. And they did. But not in the way you'd expect. They strategically used funding rounds to drive brand awareness. A perfect example of this was their appearance on Shark Tank.
I'm Will Davies.
And I'm Dave Trumbull.
We're co-founders of Car Next Door, a peer-to-peer car sharing platform.
We're looking for $300,000 for a 4% stake in order to launch into a new market.
It clearly wasn't about the money, but the exposure, stating in their pitch,
We want to grow market share as fast as we can. We realise that this is a network effect business.
Their Shark Tank appearance introduced the company to over 500,000 live viewers and more than 1 million online. But that wasn't the only time they used funding to grow their brand. In 2017, they raised $1.5 million with crowdfunding that they said was 1 part marketing and 1 part capital. Between 2016 and 2020, they'd go from doing less than 2,000 trips a month to over 20,000, with Will Davies saying in an interview that they were averaging over 700 trips a day. And so it was an amazing story of turning an idea into Australia's leader of peer-to-peer car sharing. But then they sold it to Uber. Around the time Uber acquired it, their underlying model changed completely. And I think we can say objectively, these changes didn't make it better for consumers. On the 22nd of November 2021, less than 2 months before Uber announced that it had purchased Car Next Door, one word changed on the homepage of their website. That word was insurance. Here's where it gets interesting. Arguably the most challenging and expensive exercises in setting up a peer-to-peer car sharing business is finding anyone willing to insure potentially thousands of unknown drivers jumping in hundreds of vehicles that vary in age and condition. But somehow, Car Next Door did. Not only did they find an insurer to take this massive risk, but the insurance they offered was everything both borrowers and lenders could ask for. From the day they launched, car owners were covered under a comprehensive insurance policy, and the website even recommended that they cancel their personal policy to save money. Similarly, this policy also covered the borrowers of the vehicle, so neither borrowers nor renters had to worry. What wasn't immediately obvious is that a simple change to one word on their website represented a complete change to their business model. A change that might have increased Uber's profits, but to consumers made it a whole lot worse. Now, making a booking on Uber Carshare looks a little like this. You select a car, choose the dates you want to rent it, and you're taken to this checkout page. You're told that your trip includes basic cover. But what is basic cover? Well, damage and loss cover cover for theft and fire, 24/7 roadside assistance, and a $2,000 excess if you make a claim. For a fee, you can upgrade to premium cover, reducing your excess to $500 if you damage the car. Although they carefully use the word cover, there's a risk that cover could be misinterpreted as insurance. They even use the word excess, which is a common term used in insurance, a term that the Insurance Council of Australia has a whole page explaining. In Australia, RACV, or the Royal Automobile Club of Victoria, is a well-known provider of roadside assistance. If you break down, they'll help you. So that checks out. But Mobility Mutual, it's not a well-known insurance provider, but credibly placed next to the RACV, you might not realize that it's not an insurance provider at all. And the reason I'm saying you might not realize it isn't insurance is because someone posted that exact experience on Reddit. They said, "I went to rent a ute from Uber Carshare on the weekend to take some garden waste to the tip. I then received a strange email which said I was a member of Mobility Mutual. Didn't know what it was, so I opened the PDS. It turns out that Uber Carshare does not provide insurance when you rent a car. The PDS is super clear on this. It states that it is not insurance and is designed so that the Insurance Act does not apply. So what is Mobility Mutual? And what is damage and loss cover? Well, according to the PDS, Mobility Mutual is a specific type of legal entity called a company limited by guarantee. These companies are often used by non-profits and consist of a group of members, a board of directors, a company secretary, and other officers. Damage and loss cover refers to a discretionary risk product offered by Mobility Mutual called Trip Cover. In the Trip Cover PDS, it explains more about Mobility Mutual. It says, the mutual is owned by its members and only members of the mutual are entitled to access the benefits of trip cover for each booking they make. So you have to be a member to be covered. But how do you become a member? Well, according to Mobility Mutual's website, the first time you make a booking with Uber Carshare, you'll be offered to become a member. If you accepted, you're now legally a member and therefore a part owner of this public company. This means you're eligible to vote in the annual general meeting, so expect an invite. But that's not all. Remember how they said Mobility Mutual is a non-profit company limited by guarantee? Well, by becoming a member, you're agreeing to provide that guarantee. It means that if the company is wound up and can't pay its debts, you'll pay the guarantee stated in its constitution. But don't worry. Thankfully, in Mobility Mutual's constitution, it states the guarantee is only $1. But I'd be very interested to know how many people realized they were a part owner of this company or had provided a guarantee at all. So now, rather than being instantly covered under CarNextDoor's old comprehensive insurance policy, you've gone through the legal process of becoming a member of this company. When you now make a booking as a member, you'll be offered trip cover. Considering the amount of effort and legal costs that likely went into founding this company and having members join, surely it's better for the customer. Well, here's the kind of protection that Trip Cover provides you. According to Uber, Trip Cover covers you for damage and loss, which includes damage to the car you've booked, loss of the car due to theft or fire, towing, storage, recovery charges, and third-party damage and loss. Brilliant. But that's if they cover you. Here's the fine print.
We refer to our benefits as protection to highlight the fact that we offer an alternative to insurance. Trip cover is discretionary protection, which is a legitimate way in which you can manage your liability for costs involved with any trip damage and loss to a vehicle. To qualify as discretionary protection, it is important for the board to have the absolute discretion to accept or reject a member's claim. Otherwise, there's a risk that the product would be considered an insurance product and the mutual would be required to be authorized under the Insurance Act to conduct an insurance business.
Now, obviously, we wouldn't want them to be authorized under the Insurance Act because then they'd be required to do things like conduct their sales processes in a fair, honest, and transparent manner. Not being authorized under the Insurance Act means that you're not covered under the many protections it offers consumers. But that's not even the worst part. They said the board has absolute discretion to accept or reject a claim. But what does that mean? Well, it means that there is
no automatic right of indemnity under Trip Cover's protection wording.
Or in other words, they have no obligation to cover you, even if you've done everything right, and that you only have
the right to have a claim considered.
You see, as a company, they're obligated to act in the best interest of all of their members, not an individual member like you. So if your big bill is going to wipe out a large portion of their pool of contributions, it might be best,
in the interest of all of the members,
not to pay you. Here's the difference. Insurance means you're covered unless you breached a term. Discretionary risk protection means you're not covered unless the board decides to accept your claim. So that brings us back to the booking page. If you chose to learn more about Mobility Mutual, you're given a summary of the policy. Not once in the summary does it explicitly say that it is not an insurance product and that they have the absolute discretion to accept or reject your claim. What they say is,
The most you'll pay for these costs is your excess, subject to your claim being accepted by Mobility Mutual.
subject to your claim being accepted. What that doesn't explicitly say is that even if you don't break one of their more than 30 exclusions, the board still has the absolute discretion to reject your claim. To be told that, you'd have to click a link taking you to an external page, click on the right financial service, and read page 6 of the PDS. This is the same company that has already admitted to engaging in misleading and deceptive conduct and has been fined $21 million for a completely separate matter. I'm not claiming that they've made false or misleading representations, but they've already admitted to doing it once in 2022. Uber Carshare is scheduled to launch in North America in mid-2023. So if you're there, I'd read the fine print. Thanks for watching.